Ano nga ba ang Freedom of Information? Ang executive order, may nais ka bang malaman mula sa gobyerno? Madali lang sa FOI. May dalawang paraan, standard at online. Kung standard FOI, Step 1. Kompletuhin ng request form at ibigay sa receiving officer ng ahensya. Step 2. Ipoproseso ito sa loob ng 15 to 35 working days. Step 3. May matatanggap kang mensahe kung kailan at paano mo makukuha ang request. Pwede rin mag-request online. Step 1. I-check sa website ang hanap mo. Kung hindi pa available, i-click ang Make a Request. Step 2. Makatatanggap ka ng email tungkol sa iyong request. Step 3. Dito mo rin matatanggap ang impormasyong hanap mo. Para sa iba pang detalye, pumunta sa FOI website. Ano, subukan na natin!
Hindi. Walang batas na nagsasaad na requirements ang pagiging botante ng isang lugar o barangay para makakuha ng barangay clearance. Hindi na siya kailangan bago makapagpatayo ng negosyo o makapagpasagawa ng aktibidad sa isang barangay. Ang voter's ID ay maaaring ipresenta kung ito naman ay available. Subalit hindi ito mandatory upang ikaw ay makakuha ng barangay clearance. Tandaan, ang pagiging botante ng isang barangay ay hindi batayan para makakuha o mabigyan ka ng barangay clearance. Ito man ay para sa pagninegosyo o iba pang layunin.
Ano nga ba ang Freedom of Information? Ang executive order para sa Freedom of Information ay nagsasabatas sa pagbubukas ng mga pampublikong dokumento para sa lahat. Ang bawat Pilipino ay may access na sa mga talaan, dokumento, papeles, at datos para sa research ng gobyerno. Ano nga ba ang Freedom of Information? Ang executive order para sa Freedom of Information ay nagsasabatas sa pagbubukas ng mga pampublikong dokumento para sa lahat. Ang bawat Pilipino ay may access na sa mga talaan, dokumento, papeles, at datos para sa research ng gobyerno. Dahil sa FOI, makukuha mo na ang mga impormasyon mula sa gobyerno na makatutulong sa lahat ng Pilipino. Tumungo sa www.foi.gov.ph para sa karagdagang impormasyon.
Diniliwanag po natin, wala pong COVID-19 vaccination exemption card na inalabas ang pamahalaan. Hindi po yan i-honor ng mga LGU o kaya man ng DILG. Walang ganun mga kadagyaw. Dapat lahat ay mabakunahan kontra COVID-19 at magkaroon ng vaccination card anumang alert level sa inyong lugar. Walang exemption. Isang malaking fake news po yan.
May nais ka bang malaman mula sa gobyerno? Madali lang sa FOI. May dalawang paraan, standard at online. Kung standard FOI, Step 1. Kumpletuhin ng request form at ibigay sa receiving officer ng ahensya. Step 2. Ipoproseso ito sa loob ng 15 to 35 working days. Step 3. May matatanggap kang mensahe kung kailan at paano mo makukuha ang request. Pwede ring mag-request online. Step 1. I-check sa website ang hanap mo. Kung hindi pa available, i-click ang Make a Request. Step 2. Makatatanggap ka ng email tungkol sa iyong request. Step 3. Dito mo rin matatanggap ang impormasyong hanap mo. Para sa iba pang detalye, pumunta sa FOI website. Ano, subukan na natin!
Diniliwanag po natin, wala pong COVID-19 vaccination exemption card na inalabas ang pamahalaan. Hindi po yan i-honor ng mga LGU o kaya man ng DILG. Walang ganun mga kadagyaw. Dapat lahat ay mabakunahan kontra COVID-19 at magkaroon ng vaccination card anumang alert level sa inyong lugar. Walang exemption. Isang malaking fake news po yan.
Good morning to our participants, resource speakers, and partners in open governance. Welcome to the second session of the Philippine Open Gov Week 2022, Engage, Empower, Exemplify, Championing Open Governance in Changing Times. Please welcome today's session moderator, the Network Coordinator of Kaabag sa Sugbo Foundation Incorporated and the Visayas CSO representative in the PH-OGP Steering Committee, Ms. Catherine Ruiz.
Thank you. Good morning. Magandang umaga, maayong buntag, maupay na aga, naimbag nga bigat. And happy Open Gov Week sa atong tanan. Maayong pag-abot sa ikaduhang panagtigom or the second session sa OGP Week celebration natin entitled Trailblazing Reforms and Innovation in Governance, enabling meaningful collaboration through an open and empowering civic space. Today's session is very interesting as we will be discussing key reforms and innovations that have been very instrumental to more than a decade of the OGP in the Philippines. In this session, we highlight the benefits of an open and empowering space where citizens can freely participate in the formulation, implementation, and monitoring of governance reforms. We have this morning a strong roster of discussants. They are rock stars in their respective sectors who are well known in the Philippine open government community because of their extensive efforts in promoting the principles of transparency and public participation. Pero bago we proceed, nais ko munang batiin ang lahat ng ating mga kasama na nanonood at handang makikiisa sa magaganap na talakayan natin dito sa Zoom at sa Facebook. In Zoom, we are joined by over 130 registered participants from various sectors from both government and non-government. With your participation, we hope to enrich the discussion laid down by our discussants. Tayo po ay kasalukuyan napapanood sa Facebook pages ng Philippine Open Government Partnership, Caucus of Development NGO Networks, DILG Support to Local Government Program, FOI Philippines, and Ibon Foundation. Hello po sa ating lahat. Please feel free to share this session to your network and let's have a fruitful discussion in our morning session. Dili na ta maglangan-langan. Let us officially start this session. To give us the open message is a very dedicated champion of PH-OGP. He is the former business group representative in the PH-OGP Steering Committee and is currently sitting as the alternate representative of the Unang Hakbang Foundation, the Luzon CSO representative. Mga higala, let us now welcome Mr. Santiago Dumlao Jr. Sir Santi, you have the virtual floor.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Good morning, my dear colleagues and friends in the OGP community. I am grateful for this opportunity to make an opening statement as we celebrate OGP Week. We have chosen to mark our celebration by focusing on three operative words: engage, empower, exemplify. The previous session the other day dwelt on being engaged, by which I take it to mean essentially to participate. But what is participation without empowerment? The participant, and by this I mean civil society participants, should be empowered for effective participation. But how do we empower for OGP? Well, first of all, what do we mean to empower? To empower is to provide the circumstances and the position of ascendancy and influence to get things done or to get others to get things done. I have learned in this OGP community that it is not enough to be engaged. It is as well necessary to be empowered. Even if the government opens its doors for civil society to be engaged with them in the co-creation process of developing OGP-driven projects, if the civil society representatives are not duly capacitated for the task, they are not empowered. They will not be effective. So who will provide the empowerment? The government will provide the opportunity for engagement. But it has to be civil society itself that must take the initiative to capacitate itself for the tasks of effective engagement. Certainly, we expect the government to help, but the initiative must come from civil society. And when we have the wide opportunities for engagement and the accompanying empowerment, then we have the fruits of our partnership to exemplify. To be empowered is not just to be heard, but to be listened to. To be empowered is not just to have a seat at the discussion table, but to receive a feedback on one's suggestions. To be empowered is not just to attend forums, but to receive accomplishment reports on government commitments made. So what am I driving at? It is really up to civil society and the private sector to empower themselves for the OGP work ahead. And the empowerment will not come from elsewhere. We, the private sector, must empower ourselves with the aggressiveness of a legitimate cause in the confidence of the nobility of our partnership purpose. The presentations that will follow will be testament to the nobility of our joint undertakings. You might find this opening statement probably a bit pompous in rhetoric, but I am just trying to match the grandiose words I read in our program. Trailblazing reforms, innovation in governance, meaningful collaboration, open and empowering civic space. We need not apologize or be defensive about our enthusiasm. This is as it should be for missionaries, which we are, either energized missionaries of the OGP gospel. Now, in closing, let us look again at the words open and partnership. To empower ourselves, let us put more meaning to open, put more action to partnership. Openness means a commitment to full transparency, to be naked to each other. And if there is anything wrong in what we say, anything misaligned, or anything broken, let us point out but not dwell on just criticism. Let us undertake to repair, to readjust, to reconstruct, to remediate. And this is where partnership must bloom to reality. Government must be open. Yes, open in its policies and practices, in its reasons and its intentions. But so must civil society and the private sector be open likewise in its genuine motivations, in its sharing of talent, and in its contribution of resources. Each party must know and keep their respective roles and separate responsibilities. But both sectors are equal partners. One neither superior nor inferior, trusting partners, not policemen to each other, useful partners, realizing the need for each other, edifying partners, building on each other's capabilities and strength. True partners, useless one without the other. It was Saint Mother Teresa who said, and I quote, "It is not how much we are doing, but how much love, how much honesty, how much faith is put into doing it." It makes no difference what we are doing. What you are doing, I cannot do. And what I am doing, you cannot do. But all of us are doing what God has given us to do. Only sometimes we forget and we spend more time looking at somebody else and wishing we were doing something else. We waste our time thinking of tomorrow, and today we let the day pass, and yesterday is gone. End of quote. My friends in the OGP community, let these powerful words of Mother Teresa sink deeply into our minds and hearts, and let us feel renewed and empowered for today and days to come. It is not easy, as we all know by our 10 years of experience. It's not going to be easy, but we're all here together, feeling empowered. Walang bibitaw. Let us begin the day. Thank you.
Daghang kaayong salamat, Sir Santi, for that empowering words, no? Those that very empowering message. Indeed, you have set the tone for our session, and you have well explained the gospel of OGP. Thank you also for reminding us that empowerment should be self-initiated, using resources and platforms available to us in the non-government sector. If you were able to participate in the first session of Open Gov Week last Monday, Ms. Mafia Del Mundo of Code NGO explained the relevance of the words engage, empower, and exemplify to this year's celebration. These words, which were also given emphasis by Sir Santi in his opening message, determine the core of each session for the duration of Open Gov Week. Monday's session focused on the theme engaged, where the Commission on Audit Commissioner Roland Pondoc shared the story of Citizen Participatory Audit Program through his presentation, The Power of Participation, or How Citizen Engagement Changed the Philippine Auditing Landscape. This morning, we are now moving to the next theme, Empower. This session carries the banner Trailblazing Reforms and Innovation in Governance, enabling meaningful collaboration through an open and empowering civic space. We will be highlighting how an open and empowering civic space helps OGP stakeholders and other citizens groups in communities in both government and non-government make their advocacies and initiatives on governance felt on the ground and impact communities. To elaborate on this theme, we have with us notable OGP champions from both government and non-government sectors. Before I go to introduce the various organizations and the representatives who will serve as our panelists, let me first acknowledge the presence of the head of PH-OGP steering committee and the secretariat from the government side, Undersecretary Rolando U. Toledo. Yusek Rolly, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So again, our discussion for this morning's session, which will take roughly an hour or more, depending on how interactive also our audience presentation will evolve around key government reforms, particularly from the Presidential Communications Operations Office or PCOO's program on localization of the freedom of information, the Anti-Red Tape Authority or ARTA's experience in promoting efficiency and accountability in the delivery of public services, and the Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG's initiatives on CSO participation in local governance processes. From the non-government sector, we will look into the Council for People's Development and Governance or CPDG's advocacy on expanding the civic space and a rights-based approach to development. The Philippine Partnership for the Development of Human Resources in Rural Areas or PHILDRA's commitment to the pursuit and realization of agrarian reform and rural development throughout the country, and the Education Network or ENET Philippines' efforts to complement, consolidate, and integrate various initiatives of civil society organizations in pushing for education reforms. I'm sure you are all excited to listen and learn from our panelists. But before we do so, let us do a quick activity using the application Mentimeter. From your mobile phones, you may scan the QR code flashed on your screen or visit menti.com and use the code 53671731 to participate in our activities. You may also click the link that was sent by the Secretariat in the Zoom chat box or the Facebook comment section for your easy reference. I hope everyone has already accessed the link to Menti. So, upon accessing Menti, you just have to answer this question. What comes to mind when you hear the word trailblazer? So please key in 1 or 2 words that pop into your mind when you hear the word trailblazer. Okay, pioneer, innovation, champion, stands out. First, lead, outstanding, hardworking, breakthrough, a cut above the rest.
Innovator, exemplary, reformer.
Kakaiba, extraordinary. Okay, time is up. So you can now see our word cloud. This is the summary of the answers you provided to our Menti question. Maraming salamat for participating in our Mentimeter activity. The words we see in screen or we saw in screen describe very well the programs and initiatives of our esteemed panelists. So let us see how these words do fit into their sharing later on their initiatives on governance reforms to make citizens' participation and citizens' empowerment possible. Paalala lang po sa ating lahat that we will all be engaged in this discussion. Please feel free for our Zoom participants and our Facebook audience to ask your questions to our panelists related to their programs or to the topic using our Zoom chat box and the comment section of your Facebook where we are being live streamed, no? So mukhang handa naman tayong lahat. Kaya naman, let us start the session. Here with us live in the second session of the Open Gov Week are government and non-government advocates of OGP, starting with Attorney Chris Ablan, who is the FOI Program Management Office Director and PCOO Undersecretary for Administration and Finance, as well as a Deputy Presidential Spokesperson. Maayong buntag, Attorney Chris. We are also joined by Secretary Jeremiah Belgica, the Director General of the Anti-Red Tape Authority, Attorney Odilon Pasaraba, the Assistant Secretary for Special Concerns and Head of the Bureau of Local Government Supervision of the Department of the Interior and Local Government. Maayong buntag sa atong mga panelists from the government sector. Let me now introduce our panelists from the non-government sector. First, we have Ms. Catlea Zahira Itong. She is the Program Manager of the Philippine Partnership for Development of Human Resources in Rural Areas. She is joined by Mr. Jose Enriquez, Sani Africa, a trustee and policy advisor of the Council for People's Development and Governance. And last but not least, Professor Flora Arellano, Executive Board Member of the Education Network or ENET Philippines. Maayong buntag sa inyong tanan ug daghang salamat for gracing us with your presence. Simulan na po natin ang session sa unang tanong. No? So this is a general question that we would like our government discussants to please briefly address. First, you may want to describe your agency's initiative or reform that embodies citizen empowerment. You may also want to focus your sharing to the question, why do you think your agency's initiative or reform is trailblazing or innovative? So maybe we start from USEC Chris Ablan. USEC Chris, then to be followed by Assistant Secretary Pasaraba and then Secretary Jeremiah.
Hi, good morning, Ma'am Kat. And good morning to everyone. Happy Open Government Week 2022 to everyone here on the Zoom, as well as those watching us on Facebook and on all digital platforms of our partners. Ma'am Kat, am I supposed to answer the question or do I go through my presentation? But I can answer your question.
Yes, do you have a presentation? We'd like to make this a conversation. So if you feel that your presentation can aid you, you may please feel free.
I'm good. I'm good with answering. Let's make it a free-flowing discussion for this morning. I think it's going to be more interesting that way. The Presidential Communications Operations Office, or PCOO, is very happy to be a commitment holder of the Philippine Open Government. I'd like to greet my colleagues in government, Secretary Belgica, ASEC Pasaraba, and of course my boss in DBM, USEC Rolly, and our partners, civil society organizations that have been championing, pioneering, and trailblazing open government initiatives for the past many years. I'm very honored to be part of this for the past 5 or 6 years. PCOO is a commitment holder in terms of freedom of information. One long-standing commitment, Ma'am Kat, is the passage of the Freedom of Information Bill. We have had great steps and embraced innovation by having all of our TWG meetings with the House Committee on Public Information on Zoom. We've had, I think, 4 TWGs, and we're very happy that CSO partners like the Right to Know Right Now Coalition, AER, and many other CSOs participated in the TWG. Second, we're also a commitment holder for the localization of freedom of information, not only in the provincial, city, or municipal level, but all the way down to the barangay level. We're very happy that with the partnership with the DILG, we have convinced 14 provinces to pass their respective FOI ordinances. That's almost 20% of our total provinces, and we look forward for the coming years, especially ASEC Odi is here, and he will help us convince more especially newly elected officials to pass their respective ordinances. Because like in everything else, Kat, like politics is local, information is also local. And so FOI should also be local. And I think I've spoken more than I should. But again, PCO is the commitment holder to two commitments: to the passage of the FOI bill, as well as the localization of freedom of information all the way down to the grassroots level. Back to you.
Thank you. And since you mentioned ASEC Audi and the relevance of, really bringing it down to our local government, first, I will call you next, ASEC Audi, no? And so first, describe maybe your flagship programs, no, under the ILG on CSO participation and, vis-a-vis local governance processes, no? Meaningful engagement.
Kat, good morning, and of course, happy OGP week sa lahat ng ating mga ka-OGP community. To Sir Santi Dumlao, thank you so much for nurturing our soul, our mind today. And of course, we have Yusek Rolando Toledo, sir, and Secretary Jeremiah Belhica, sir, and Yusek Chris. Good to see you here again. And of course, our NGO and CSO partners. Thank you for making the ILG your partner as always in fortifying CSO participation as a pillar for better local governance. And indeed, syempre, ang Department of the Interior and Local Government under the baton of Secretary Eduardo M. Año has ensured and is ensuring, I should say, that internally, we need to build that culture of knowledge-centric and CSO-centric organization. And this can be seen and felt and at the same time articulated in our quality policy as an organization, that part of our pillar is really engagement and at the same time empowerment and the participation of our civil society organizations in the fulcrum of our plans, activities, and programs. Okay, I would like to share in this forum the two-pronged approach on the part of the DILG in relation to our CSO engagement. The first one is our input, the civil society organization PPP project, or the 4Ps, which stands for the Civil Society Organizations People's Partnership or Participation Partnership Program. This is the umbrella of our CSO related activities and plans and programs, encapsulating the citizens, part of which is the Citizen Satisfaction Index System. We have also the Citizen Satisfaction Index System is a feedback mechanism wherein our local government units are to participate and at the same time to put forward their activities, programs in relation to the assessment to be conducted by our local academe or state colleges and universities. Another part of the program under the CSO PPP is, of course, the the CSO or Civil Society Participation Fund, wherein a small grant facility aiming to enhance the roles and contributions of civil society organizations to the development of projects that address identified service delivery gaps. Maybe ito yung mga input variables namin on how to trigger participation and at the same time observance of our respect to the civil society organizations and non-government organizations as development partners and enablers of the DILG and also to the local government units. But more than ever, I would like to share the other approach, and that is the performance-based system of the DILG to local government units, wherein we would like to measure, the civil society participation, their active participation, their engagement through results, particularly their membership and participation in the local development councils and various councils as institutions, democratic institutions, to really flourish, open, transparent, and responsive local governance. And indeed, based on our seal of good local governance, wherein this has been an evolving performance management system, we evolve as well the indicators progressively in relation to CSO participation, not only as a matter of member to local development councils or other democratic council institutions at the local level, but measuring as well their active participation, their meaningful contribution, their voices, and as well their accountabilities in the realm of local governance. And ngayon, mas lalo nating pinapaigting yung performance indicator, particularly on uh, the their participation and contribution sa ating seal of good local governance. For now, Kat, I think yun muna yung ating ma-share unless you have questions later on for
Yes.
relative to my presentation or to my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, ASEC Audie. We will go into that. You mentioned a lot of programs that are close to my heart as well. We will first, but before we go to the open or the free questions and discussion, we will hear from the Director General of ARTA, also something that is very important in terms of making government from national agencies to local governments more efficient. No? So, Secretary Jeremiah, maayong buntag.
Maayong buntag, Ma'am Kat, to our colleagues and friends. Of course, Yusek Chris Ablan, great to see you, Yusek. Of course, Yusek Rolly, my colleague from IATF, sir. Of course, ASEC Audie, sir, thank you for sharing. And of course, Sir Santi, thank you for that wonderful opening message. Well, to answer the question, ARTA being a new agency could be called as an innovation and a trailblazing innovation and accomplishment by the current administration of our President Mayor Rodrigo Duterte. In 2018, the law on the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act was enacted, which strengthens the 2007 law on anti-red tape. And I've been to some international conventions, one particularly in Paris of the OECD. And upon my presentation, it became very apparent that this law that we now created, or the Ease of Doing Business, or the new ARTA law, is actually a Philippine innovation because it actually combines two very important powers or initiatives to combat government inefficiency and promote government efficiency. One is the empowerment mandate or function, which calls for all government agencies to mandatorily streamline their processes, review their policies, and come up with innovations and solutions to better government service or government services, which would actually include automation. Also, on the other hand, this new law also strengthens the enforcement function or the enforcement aspect of the law. Ito naman po yung investigation and even filing of cases and raising penalties for those who are non-complying in the provisions of the law. It also gave an automatic approval provision for applications for permits and licenses that remains to be enacted within the processing time of 3 days, 7 days, or 20 days. These features of the law, including the creation of a new government agency, which is our anti-red tape authority, is actually an innovation in itself. And ARTA has been both implementing the empowerment and the enforcement functions. Now, since we are really delving into government transparency and open government participation and provide for empowering our civic space, let me just say that the midterm and the long-term goal should actually be, when it comes to our regulations, is to develop what we call the regulatory management system. Ang regulatory management system, for the past 20 or 30 years, the Philippines have remained in the starter stage of the regulatory management system, while the other countries all around us have matured to the second, third, and the final and most mature phase, which is the enabled stage. But through this new law and through the efforts of ARTA, we are slowly maturing in our regulatory management system. But let me, Ms. Kat, let me just say that when we refer to a regulatory management system, we're basically referring to the system by which we manage our regulations. Kasi ho, sa napakahabang panahon, government agencies and regulators, the answer for any problem, normally the knee-jerk reflex is to come up with a new regulation. And sometimes these regulations does not reflect the intentions of those which are being regulated. So the regulatory management system that we need to set up for the entire country is actually pivotal for us to really move our country forward and better the government services. But one of the important feature of a mature regulatory management system is what we call regulatory impact assessment. This is now the global practice by which government agencies are able to determine whether a proposed policy is actually red tape ridden or inefficient. Ibig sabihin, bago pa lumabas ang bagong regulation, nafa-flag na ng government agency if this will be actually redundant, burdensome, and all of these things. And one of the most important component of a regulatory management system is what you call consultation for stakeholders and an open evaluation. Not only that we need to make our crafting of policies more transparent and inclusive, but also in the evaluation of the implementation. I think ASEC Audi did mention a while ago about the satisfaction or client satisfaction for the government, different LGUs. ARTA also is now coming up with our new guidelines for what we call the report card survey for all government agencies. Kasama po sa report card survey is yung client satisfaction survey. So, Ma'am Kat, we are now promoting transparency and inclusivity in the creation and the calling of the policies, and also in the evaluation of the application and the implementation of the policies. Let alone, because of the lack of time, I cannot really go through the other initiatives, but as we push for government streamlining, we have to also be reminded that we cannot automate our systems without streamlining and re-engineering our processes. Hindi ho pwede tayong tumalon sa automation nang hindi ho natin na streamline ang ating pong mga policies at ang ating pong mga proseso, because we will potentially automate red tape if we do it the other way around. So we push for automation, we push for streamlining. We now have the Good Regulatory Management System Manual, the Regulatory Impact Assessment Manual, the first ever, the Philippine Good Regulatory Principles, and also the whole of government re-engineering manual that we have created in the past year. And we're now capacitating all government agencies in this regard. So these are some of the things that I do believe that we should really push forth to really have an inclusive and open governance in our country.
Thank you so much, Secretary Jeremiah. We are posting in the Zoom chat box, no, as well as in the comment section of Facebook, the links to the websites of our government agencies featured here. No, if you want to know more, I hear a lot of magic words, and I I look forward to a Philippine government from national agencies down to the local government when all of these programs are really implemented, fully implemented. But then again, when we talk of governance, we're looking at two equations. One side would be government and the other side non-government. So we'd like to hear from our non-government panelists as to how your organizations impact on making the civic space more dynamic, ensuring that it doesn't close down, and how do we empower our citizens, through the efforts and initiatives that you are doing. What do you think? And you may want to also answer the specific question on what do you think are key factors for sustaining active civic space. So we will start first with our kauban from Fieldra, Ms. Kat Itong. Kat. So we'd like to call on our non-government panelists, no, to join my screen. Miss Kat, Sir Sonny, Ma'am Flora.
Yan.
Hi. Oo. So Miss Kat.
Okay.
Yes. So what is Fieldra doing?
Thank you, Miss Cathy. No, good morning to all. Happy Open Government Week 2022. Hello, Yusik Chris. Nice to see you here. And everyone, all of my colleagues and friends here in OGP. So for Fieldra, as we all know that our foremost advocacy is on asset reform and rural development. So we tend to address farmers and fishers concerns, but as the years progress, we have found out that it's not only focusing on the problems encountered by this sector, but also to strengthen their sector to participate in local government processes. So that is why Fieldra has a program on participatory local governance called CPAG, wherein we consolidate, we form networks at the local level. We are not only focusing now with farmers and fishers, but we have to be inclusive. So we involve all CSOs at the local level. Then we give them capacity building, different capacity building. It ranges from leadership, organizational development, to participatory local planning, because we want to strengthen their participation. Because as Sir Santi mentioned in his opening speech, that it is up to us, and it's not only by representing our sector in those government structure, but really contribute to the planning to push forward with our own advocacy. And then parang we have to take charge of that. Then and on how we tend to sustain these efforts is that we push for local policy reforms. So it was mentioned earlier by Yusek Chris that we are also helping in localizing FOI ordinance with the ILG's memorandum on establishing local development, People's Development Council. So we are complementing those efforts. We don't want to replicate, we don't want to create another network, but we want to complement what is already there. So we are assisting, facilitating the formation of development councils in our areas. Also, we also tend to develop second liners, because we observe that CSOs right now are, let's just say that we are in the 30s to 40s, and we're not seeing much of a younger generation. So we're trying to involve the youth sector to have a second liner for development work. And we're slowly introducing the different digital platforms, like for example, for our citizen-led monitoring, wherein we partner with the ILG with our DevLive program. And also we capacitate the CSOs on how to use other online tools like Kobo when they do their citizen monitoring. So I think that's in general, that's the program of Fieldra when it comes to participatory local governance. Thank you, Ms. Cathy.
Salamat, Miss Kat. Next, we will hear from Sir Sonny. So, kini excited ko maminaw ani. Sir Sonny, yes, what is CPDG and what do you do?
Oo nga. Para medyo maiba, okay na akong mag-share. I promise hindi to tedious PowerPoint. Para medyo mag-iba lang yung look natin. Okay lang.
I'm not sure if you are allowed to share ba?
I'm allowed. I'm asking
you
for
are? O sige, quick.
Promise, hindi to presentation. It's just parang hindi yung mukha ko nakikita nyo kasi bored na ako sa mukha ko eh.
Happy naman yung mukha nyo.
Okay. Meron na.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Sige. Well, siguro hindi tulad ng mga others na nakaraan kasi before me, hindi kasing sikat yung CPDG, I think, yun, PhilDRA, PCOO, etc. So, parang brief paliwanag lang. Yung CPDG, teenager pa lang siya, tinayo siya noong 2008. Basically, network siya ng over 60, I think about 65 ang last count namin ng mga NGOs and POs across the country. So, kaya nag-insist ako magka-picture para medyo may mukha naman yung CPDG sa inyo. So of course, naka-plot out dun sa map yung yung areas of operation ng CPDG apart from yung national networks niya. Kung anong ginagawa ng CPDG, well, medyo natawa nga ako dun sa sabi na tumatanda na yung mga NGO workers, civil society workers. Actually, totoo siya. Kung nag-General Assembly yung CPDG, siguro mga 80% talaga nasa swerte ka na kung makuha ka ng 20s. Most talaga are over 30. Pero ganoon din kasi, although bata pa yung CPDG, marami sa mga organizations ng CPDG, they've been around for decades. Some, like Ibon, na 43 years old na. So anong ginagawa ng CPDG, hindi ko na ulitin. It's all the familiar CPDG development work. Poverty alleviation, democratic corruption-free governance, environment protection, disaster relief. All the mga nakasanayan natin na NGO, PO work actually ay pinapatuloy ng CPDG. Pero I think in the short time na meron, to drill home dun sa point na ano ba yung innovation, ano ba yung trailblazing. Well, syempre tingin namin, hindi naman to election campaign, nauubra yung mga fancy words na medyo endorphin rush. So I think palamnan natin. Tingin namin at pinagmumuna ng lahat ng member organizations ng CPDG, yung in the context of yung Pilipinas na talagang long-standing na yung kahirapan, underdevelopment, at kailangan natin aminin, lack of democracy. Ano bang totoong innovation? Ano ba yung totoong trailblazing reforms? Kami would argue, yung talagang maging innovation sa ating governance ay yung ina-expand yung civic space. Hindi kaaway, katuwang sa pag-unlad ng buong bansa. And that sounds like a generality, but it's unfortunately a very difficult thing to achieve right now. Totoong innovation in governance is expanding civic space. Ano yung totoong trailblazing reform? Again, in that context, yung matagal nang sinasabi na kailangan genuinely empowered yung citizenry, yung public, yung communities. And we'd argue, for the longest time, yung empowerment, iniisip yan, basta may economic empowerment ka, basta may bosses ka, empowered na. Of course, mahalaga yon. Even CPDG members have decades of work dun sa mga direct services sa mga communities. Very important yan for immediate benefits. But in a lot of ways, minimirror lang niya yung government services eh. Kumbaga, supplementary or parallel work yung ginagawa ng maraming NGOs and CSOs. And we'd argue, hindi yun dapat ang core mission ng civil society. Kasi trabaho ng government yon. If it's about providing social economic services, that's actually primarily the government's responsibility. Pwedeng supplementary, pampuno ng gaps yung CSOs. So para sa amin, if you look at, di na ako magpapahaba, but if you look at the real conceptual roots ng CSOs, may obligation yung mga civil society to see the bigger picture, to fix the bigger problems. And the bigger problems actually how to make sure na all of the country's resources, all of the society's resources, minomobilize, ginagamit para sa ikabubuti ng mas marami. The common good, the common welfare, the general welfare. And I think doon mahalaga yung usapin ng empowerment kasi yung reality, hindi empowered yung normal citizen, hindi empowered yung average ordinary Filipino, hindi empowered, actually even marami sa mga CSOs natin. Kasi what is empowerment? Yung meaningful empowerment, may control ka dun sa araw-araw na buhay mo. Whether nasa pabrika ka or nasa farming community ka with landlords or exploitative traders or urban poor community na laganap ang yung congested yung community mo, kulang yung social services, or indigenous peoples ka na may encroachment na mga corporate mining or logging for the self-interest. Yung totoong empowerment actually is having people organized at ina-assert yung kanilang right to development in the face of yung aggression. And we'd argue, dun medyo I think yung dapat focus ng maraming CSOs on top of the service work, kailangan may ganong klaseng real sense of empowerment, control over our lives. And I think ako, I just want to conclude, yung isang kinakaharap natin na problem is, in all honesty, and I think we should be fair about it naman, and assess things properly. The last 6 years have not seen that innovation in governance because we haven't been seeing expanding civic space. We've been seeing closing civic space. Wala tayong nakukuhang trailblazing reforms in terms of empowering people. On the contrary, paurong tayo doon. So kumbaga, anti-red tape tayo pero pro-red tagging tayo. Ako, I'd argue, one thing that might be discouraging a lot of youth to join is because if you join civil society groups who are understandably, who should be critical, you're vilified, you're red targeted, tinatakot ka. Parang that's not actually an enabling environment for CSOs. It's not really expanding yung space for people to participate. So we'd argue, hindi dapat ikatakot to disagree with government. That's actually the role of civil society to raise criticisms. Of course, dapat may batayan, dapat may evidence for that. But I think that's been a bit of a problem with these last 6 years. We have not only have we not been seeing the innovations or reforms, medyo paurong tayo. If anything, we've seen attacks on civic space. And for transparency, CPDG is one of the groups that filed a petition against the anti-terror law, and we'll see how that plays out. Ako, I want to conclude lang na in terms of yung key factors for empowerment, of course, it goes without saying, yung mga tao coming together, taking action. Yan talaga yung empowerment, whether youth ka or urban poor, IPs or farmers, whatever. It's about coming together, having the confidence that when you come together, hindi ka bibirahin, hindi ka harass, etc. So that's one key point, people. Last point, it's about government actually ensuring na CSOs have the space. Hindi na sila service providers, subcontract mo yung mga development, social development work, giving CSOs the space as allies against powerful political and economic interests. At kilala naman natin who those powerful political economic interests are. At dapat yung gobyerno, representing the people, katuwang dapat ng civil society laban sa mga interests na yon. Hindi yung gagamitin tayong parang decoration for problematic, unequal governance. Yun lang po sa akin. Thank you.
Daghang salamat, Sir Sonny. Kagaya ng sinabi ng isang kasama namin dito sa Cebu, no, sa NGO. Matagal na rin siya sa NGO work. But he came from government. DNR RD siya sa Bukidnon when logging was very much in operation doon. We work in increments. So yun. And I think even sino ba yun? Si Robin Williams sa Dead Poet Society, he said na to contribute a line in the poetry that is life. So hopefully all these initiatives do work in increments. These are building blocks towards something that we really look forward to, no, in terms of meaningful engagement, government that is truly open and gives space, for critical collaboration as well from civil society. But we are not yet done with our non-government panel. We still have one more, again, working in increments to push for reforms in the education sector. So I'd like to welcome Ma'am Flora of ENET Philippines.
Umaga po sa ating lahat, sa ating mga kasama, sa OGP, at sa ating mga nanonood, nakikinig sa ating live streaming. Pwede bang gayahin ko rin si Sir Sunny? Share screen, pero mabilis lang ito. Okay, thank you po.
Sige po, ma'am.
Share screen. Lang po.
You can navigate po.
Ayan na. Share screen. Ayan. Alisin ko lang yun. Slideshow. Pabilis lang po ito. So, gusto ko pong kilala na naman natin lahat what is the Civil Society Network for Education Reforms. Ang aming nickname, kinilala kami sa Education Network or ENET Philippines. So, ngayon, ano nga ba ang aming ano nga po ba ang aming sarili, no? Yung pagpapakilala lang. Nationwide coalition kami ng CSO, engage in natin bilang isang malaking kontribusyon para reach out natin yung MEBs na tinatawag natin. So, secondly, ang mission namin, syempre, andun po, no, yung strengthening, no? Hindi ko na anhin yan, ulit na naman po yan. Tapos ang main vision po namin talaga, isang Philippine society where quality education is a basic human right at lahat ay may access to multicultural, gender fair, liberating, and lifelong education. Ayan po. So, pinagpapatuloy lang po namin yung 2000 na kung saan yung sinimulan yung EFA movement na hindi na-realize yung buong mga goals natin plus yung MDGs. Ngayon po, meron tayong sinasabing Sustainable Development Goals. So, bali, itong EPA movement na sinusulong pa rin ng INET, no, in the light of the Sustainable Development Goals sa kayong Education 2030 o 2040, ay nakapatungkol po ito doon sa pag-ensure na inclusive, equitable quality education and promote learning opportunities for all. Nag-ooperate po kami nationwide, no? At kami po ay merong mga sectoral clusters. Ayan na po, no? Meron kaming younger children, no? Yung older children, persons with disabilities, tapos nandyan din po yung mga Muslims, tapos po andyan din ang adult learning, yung mga adults, no? Who were not able to finish or access education sa lifetime nila. Andyan din po ang youth, andyan din po ang teachers, no? At nakakuberan itong isa. Sandali. Ayan. Yung indigenous peoples. Ngayon po, these are the sectors, no, that we serve. At ito po yung mga themes namin. Siyempre, ang unang-una po dito, yung access to inclusive and equitable quality education, which is a basic human right of everyone. So, hindi lang sa formal education, mula sa pre-primary to kindergarten to tertiary, no? Pati po yung mga nadi-displace at hindi nakapag-aaral. Ito po yung inclusion ng mga marginalized, exclusive, and vulnerable sectors, excluded and vulnerable sectors. At yung isa pa pong naming theme ay yung pagsusulong ng alternative learning system and lifelong learning para sa mga out-of-school youth and adults. At pag-institutionalize and pag-develop po ng ALS for MEBs and demand for increased funding. Wala pong, maliit lang po ang pondo sa ALS. Kaya kailangan nating kampanyahin na dagdagan ito dahil marami pong nasa labas ng paaralan at hindi naka-access ng edukasyon. At syempre, mahalaga po sa amin yung gender equality in education. Yung pagiging gender sensitive and responsive ng mga school policies. At ganun din po yung ating gender responsive budgeting in education. Meron tayong mga batas, yung GAD, pero paano ba yun i-utilize yan? Diyan po tayo nagkakaroon ng awareness and engagement, no? Pagdating na sa mga school structures natin. At syempre, mahalaga dito yung teachers' rights and welfare. Yung and professional development of the teaching and non-teaching sector. Kaya nga po isang kampanya po namin ay yung full and correct implementation of the Magna Carta for Public School Teachers. At dito, mahalaga yung aming tema, kaugnay ng education financing and governance. Meron po kaming alternative budget for education na kung saan nakikipag-coordinate din po kami sa Social Watch Philippines at in coordination with DepEd and with DBM para may push forward yung aming mga proposals, no, for alternative budget for the needy sectors. Para ma-increase ang education financing para sa MEBs, saka yung pagiging participatory governance, no, ng ating crafting ng education budget. At ayan po ang aming panawagan, dagdagan ang budget para sa edukasyon ng marginalized, excluded, and vulnerable sectors. Increase ang education financing, protect education budgets, and secure the right to education for all. At yung panghuli po sa aming mga thematic ay yung child protection, child nutrition, and positive discipline. Na in place ito, no, bilang isang mekanismo sa schools and communities. At i-promote din po ang positive parenting and positive discipline in everyday teaching in our communities. Lalo na ngayon, mahalaga ang papel ng mga magulang para katuwang ng mga guro sa pagsusulong ng edukasyon sa bagong moda ng learning landscape natin. Ngayon, ano-ano yung mga strategies namin? Una po, yung pagkukonduct namin ng policy research and development. Napakahalaga po nito sa aming mga engagement, no? Whether legislative yan or mga policy development, napakahalaga po talaga ng policy research and development. At malaki po ang nagiging tulong nito, no, doon sa ating advokasya. At syempre dito, syempre para saan ba ang mga research, no? Yan. Kaya nga dito po sa budget engagement namin, napakahalaga nung mga researchers namin sa needs ng aming constituents, no? Yung sinabi ko pong sectors namin para mailugar yung mga pangangailangan, ano, para sa pag-increase ng financing sa edukasyon. At syempre dito, hindi lang naman ang DepEd, no, ang aming kasangga para magkaroon kami ng kaisahan, ano, kung paano titingnan yung landscape ng education budget. At kung hindi man kami nagkasundo sa DepEd, ang aming venue ay ang Kongreso o Senado. Ayan po. At dito, malaki ang challenge sa amin dahil dun sa EO 138 ng Mandanas Garcia ruling, paano namin ito ipadalaganap, no, sa aming mga local networks para mag-engage sila sa localization, education reform advocacy. Malaking tulong po ang DILG dito dahil pag-accredit ng ating mga local networks. At isa sa mga resulta, no, ito nga po yung nice namin i-share na isa sa mga innovations and trailblazing or milestone ng aming mga engagement. Naisabatas na po ang ALS, RA 11510, no, sign into law. Ganun din po ang act instituting a policy of inclusion and services for learners with disabilities. Ayan po, yung RA 111650. At nakasalang po yung yung Magna Carta for public school teachers na inabutan po ng dilema noong 2021 December na minaraton po natin yan. Pero nakapag-create po ng oversight committee ang Senado para ito'y gawing agenda. Siguro ito yung aming isang isusulong dahil yung bagong gobyerno na batay sa mga pronouncement nila, talagang i-improve ang teacher status at ang professional development ng teachers. At isa po dito rin sa legislative engagement ay yung Teachers Education Act, no? Napakahalaga po ng naging role din ng INET para maisulong po ito into a law. Ngayon po, syempre, hindi naman tayo puro national. Kaya dito po yung localization ng ating engagements LGUs. At ang amin pong sinisuguro ngayon, yung pag-accredit ng mga local networks ng INET sa mga local government units para maka-participate sila sa People's Council and at the same time sa iba't ibang committee sa LGUs. At dito kasangga natin po ang DILG dahil meron po silang resolusyon na nilabas na kaugnay sa accreditation ng mga CSOs. Ayan po. At marami na po tayong gains din dito, no? Kung paano rin tayo nakasama sa Quezon City government, no? Kay Mayor Joy Belmonte, kay Richard Gomez, no, sa Leyte, na kung saan bahagi tayo ng mga MOA, no, kung paano natin isusulong yung mga pagkakaisa, no, para ma-reach out ang ating mga vulnerable sectors. Gusto ko lang din banggitin sa national level At ito, kinakascade din namin sa local level, yung OGP, CSO Education Cluster. Dahil ang mga last mile schools po natin ay nasa liblib na mga lugar o kaya sa mga sa mga probinsya na kung saan hindi naaabot no ng education services. Kaya dito po nakafocus ang INET no kasama yung mga civil society organizations on education na matiyak na natutugunan ng DepEd no ang at ng gobyerno ang ang pag-aaral ng ating mga MIPS. At meron din po kaming regular Facebook live streaming no. Yung kalambad po ito po yung sa youth no na promoting awareness and engagement of youth and organizing them no to be active advocates no ng education reforms at ng human rights at iba pa pang issues pertaining to the situations of our youth and people. Meron din po kami inclinasyon, program by and for persons with disabilities. Ayan po, regular po yan every Wednesday. At meron din po kaming senior city at ito po yung adult learning and education. Kaya dyan lang pong nagwawakas yung aking presentasyon, ang aming pong panawagan, safe, inclusive, equitable, and quality education for all. Maraming salamat po.
Daghang salamat, Ma'am Flora. To know more no, about INET and their programs, you may click on the link no, provided in our chat group and in our comments, Facebook comment section. Just to break the ice and also give us time to maybe process no lahat ng narinig natin in the past few minutes, we would like to do another Menti activity. Again, the same link, go to you may scan the QR code posted now on our screen or go to menti.com. No? So gamit ng QR code, we would like to invite you to answer this question. Sige, so what are your thoughts, comments, or suggestions on initiatives shared by our panelists, no, both government and non-government? So we have a minute and a half, 90 seconds for you to share your thoughts and or suggestions. Interesting government and CSO collaboration. It's good to hear that reforms on governance plays a vital role in partnership building between government and non-government. OGP in changing times, yes. Second generation building, increase youth participation, expand the spaces for collaboration with local actors, especially given the Mandanas regime, with partnership, optimize civic space available. Appreciate. Okay, so shout out kay Sir Sani and the points that you raised. Very informative partnership and collaboration. Continue open government initiative. Implement the FOI. Yes, yes, yes. Much to be done. Sige. So I think the rest would prefer to share their thoughts in the Facebook comment page or in our chat group. We will proceed to the open discussion. So I would like to invite our government discussants to please also join us. You may want to respond not to the comments or even suggestions posted in our Menti activity, or maybe also address certain points. No, if you notice, government presented what are their programs, the mechanisms, no, for in order for citizen to engage government at both national and local levels, but it also, and in the CSO equation, we also see how civil society do respond to yung exhortation kanina ni Sir Santi, no, of self-empowerment, critically engaging as well government in the platforms, no, that are open to us by law, and even in the spaces that we ourselves push open, no, and continue to safeguard. So yes, any comments from our discussants? Maybe maybe you can address moving forward. This is a transition year, a very exciting year for the Philippines, really, because we are entering into a new administration. No, can we address the question of sustainability of these reforms? I'd like to hear first. ARTA is already embodied in the law. Even some programs, especially the DILG's SLG. Seal of Good Local Governance, so is also now a law. Maybe the challenge for us is FOI, Sir Attorney Chris. Where are we moving forward? Especially yes, localization, but also maybe the general framework that you have been working on the past 6 years, no? In terms of pushing for the passage of the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, I knew you were going to call me out after you said that Secretary Belhica and ASEC Pasarabas programs are set in stone while we're not. We'll take a page out of the OGP playbook. The OGP was a creation during the Aquino administration. It managed to survive under the Duterte administration, and I think it will continue to survive, no, with the incoming administration. We are very active, no, with our CSO partners like CAT and FILDRA, and my colleagues in the FOI PMO CAT have informed me that they would like to volunteer as FILDRA volunteers to be your second liners. But to be serious with the answer, well, one thing is we made sure that the employees, no, and staff of the FOI PMO, because they are the heart and soul of our program, CAT, and with the help of the Department of Budget and Management, with OIC Kanda and USEC Rolly, we were able to convert their appointments to regular to the program. And so even though we have a new administration, a new president coming in on June 30, you can be rest assured, our partners in open government and CSOs, that the FOI PMO is here to stay, to continue to advocate for access to information. Our goal insofar as the bill is concerned, Kat, is to make sure that the committee report is reported out on plenary next week. That way, we will avail of Rule 48 of the House of Representatives rules, such that when the incoming Congress comes in, we will not start from scratch anymore. The committee report will be our baseline. So we are just inching a foot closer to having, after 35 years, an FOI bill. So those are the things that we're doing to have sustainability with the program, take care of our people, and also move forward with our reform in the law.
Daghang salamat, Attorney Chris. I look forward to having an enabling legislation, no, for FOI, really, in order to cascade it even and institutionalize it in our local governments. Sir Sani, I see you raising your hands. Are you responding to Attorney Chris's inputs? Yes.
Actually, I want to affirm the FOI was really for us, you know. I mean, even as an information-dependent organization, I'm also speaking for the rest of CPDG that does policy advocacy work. The FOI, we think, is really an appreciable step forward. Super big improvement talaga siya. Diba? May legal basis to request information, may mechanisms for public requests like the FOI portal. Pero yun nga, siguro also to clarify din, there are still some challenges. hindi lang kami, but a lot of other CSOs, even outside of the CPDG network, nag-complain din about outright non-response or a pseudo-response na may binibigay para may masagot pero actually hindi naman, or even a slow response even dun sa mga standard data. So I think what it is a big step forward. I think there's a lot of challenges to be met. Pero ultimately, sa ito lang, it's a government decision eh. Kasi even right now, the existing FOI mechanism, kung may decision ng lahat ng agencies to cooperate with media, with CSOs, with that random citizen to share information, I think pwede na siya eh. So I think it's not so much actually more legislation needed, but seryosohin siya. Kasi for us, example lang, Ibon has asked the National Security Council almost 600 days since our request. Para ano ba yung sinasabi nyo na we're supporting terrorists? Wala kami response from that. On the other hand, if it's something easy like a time series for wage data, maganda, mabilis mag-respond yung NWPC. So I think if the government embraces that actually information should be shared, hindi rin yung information that's convenient to be shared, yun ang pagpapatupad ng democratic spirit ng FOI. Para you don't just share na things that are convenient. Unfortunately, sometimes, kung paparindigan yung democratic principle ng freedom of information, even, and actually especially, those inconvenient information, yun ang i-share mo. Kasi you're never going to check yourself eh. I think yun ang value ng CSOs. You are going to be checking abuses, you are going to be digging deep, whether CSO yan or media or yung kapitbahay mo na average citizen. Ako, I think yun ang problem eh. So, siguro, short lang, super welcome yung FOI. We do see major steps forward compared to maybe 10 years ago. Matagal na yung ibon, I'd say since 1978, the Marcos dictatorship. Pero ganun pa man, hindi na institutionalization na kailangan. Seryosohin lang actually ng agencies, existing mechanisms, marami na yon. Huwag mag-dribble, huwag magpalusot, huwag mag-deadma. Kayang-kayo kung gusto. Kung ayaw, well, marami dahilan.
Hi, Sir Sunny. Ma'am Kat, can I respond to Sir Sunny?
Yes, Sir Chris. You may also want to maybe mention yung kumusta yung pag-audit din natin sa mga NGAs no, in terms of yung manual, FOI manual din natin.
Yes.
You said, Chris?
Yes. Anyway, hi, Sir Sunny. The last time we were together was in Lasal during one of a workshop on press freedom. Yes, so we, thank you so much no, for the compliment, and also we have lots of room for improvement. We acknowledge that. One thing that we're doing is actually we're trying to train our information officers. We have a tie-up with the Development Academy of the Philippines, and we've come out with a certification course for information officers. We learned that one of the reasons that agencies or their information officers do not disclose information is because they are unfamiliar with the different policies. They don't know if data privacy steps in. They don't know if national security steps in. So this most recent cohort po, Sir Sunny, we actually included information officers from the National Security Council, the NBI, and all other security agencies including the AFP and the DND, so that ma-familiarize sila sa concepts of participatory governance and access to information. So hopefully they will start answering you in the coming days, coming weeks, coming months. So yes, we of course have agencies that are very cooperative on FOI. DOF, PSA, DBM, DILG, and then you also have agencies that are still reluctant. So it does take time, no, for the entire bureaucracy to change. We are here to be your partners, mo, to make sure that the whole of government will be as transparent as anyone.
Pero
thank you, Chris. Sir Sunny, if it's all right with you, can I give others a chance to also interact? Okay lang?
Anyway, Chris.
Oh, you're in close collaboration naman pala with FOI PMO. Ma'am Flora, I see you raising your hand, but I will also, I'd like to give the opportunity for ASEC Audi to maybe expand on moving forward, no, in terms of really measuring and ensuring meaningful participation from CSOs. No, I think that this is very critical that DILG truly puts its weight, no? And given the challenges of Mandanas, so ASEC Audi,
Yeah, thank you. No, in relation to the question, particularly the sustainability aspect of our CSO PPP engagement, ito yung DILG. The DILG would really like to institutionalize at the local level all efforts in relation to transparency, in relation to CSO participation, meaningful CSO participation. And indeed, we are winning. We have really small gains, pero as I said, as I mentioned a while back, pinapaigting namin yung CSO engagement. A classic example of which is in the SGLG process, the civil society organizations, our academic institutions, and even our non-government organizations are members of the SGLG processes, from orientation, rollout, to implementation, to calibration, and at the same time, even final validation. Kasama namin talaga sila because we would like them as well to be part of the whole process. Okay? Dahil gusto namin malaman nila, aware sila, and at the same time, available yung information para sa kanila. In the light of, and I think we are, again, na-achieve natin to, we are winning really the intent and the very cause of why CSO and NGOs are part of the platform of the DILG. Pangalawa has something to do about pinasok namin sila sa mga performance indicators at the local level. Kasi we would like to break, the culture na sa LDC tahimik sila. Sa mga other councils, ina-appoint na lang ng local chief executives yung participation ng mga NGOs, CSOs. Gusto rin namin basagin na kulang daw ang ating mga CSOs and NGOs, kaya walang full participation. That's why the DILG, in its various policies as well as its CSO PPP, we have been intensifying our CSO accreditation. Dahil gusto talaga namin marinig ang mga civil society organizations. In essence, we want some actions. Actions na pinasa ng CSO na nandun sa annual investment plan ng ating mga lokal na pamahalaan. Gusto namin makita yung boses nila na it may be in confirmation, in affirmation of the majority of the council members, or sila yung nagdi-dissent. We would like that to be in the minutes so that really voices of civil society organizations are truly heard. Hindi na lang yung, yung silent lang sila, And yun yung pinaiigting namin. Meron ba silang mga in-advance na resolution, na project na nakita nila sa mga komunidad? Ito ba ay inadapt ng lokal na pamahalaan? Ito ba ay nagtagumpay? Indicators such as that, small steps that kung tahi-tahihin natin, kahit papaano masasabi natin na ang lokal na pamahalaan na yan, through our efforts sa civil society organizations, PPP, ay mabigyan ng kahulugan at tamang paglilinya na indeed CSO are our development partners and enablers. And sa tingin ko, for the incoming leadership, imamagnify namin, i-highlight namin ang kagandahan ng partnership with civil society organizations.
Daghang salamat, ASEC Audie. Secretary Jeremiah, I'm reminded of our time, but we can extend until maybe 11:45 if that's all right with everyone. Yung discussion part. Secretary Jeremiah, baka you'd like to expand further, no? Especially yung na-mention nyo na yung pag-create ng mga policies, no, in terms of strengthening ARTA really, because I think I forgot to ask pala yung basic question na may local expression ba yung ARTA, yung authority sa local government. So because I know dati nakaano siya yung monitoring ng anti-red tape ng mga policies, naka-embed siya sa SGLG. So how do people at the local level really maximize and even really push for yung anti-red tape, tapos yung a more efficient delivery of government response and public service delivery.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Ma'am Kat. Thank you for the question. Siguro to address your question first, the coverage po ng Republic Act 11032 or yung bagong ARTA law is both the national and the local government units. Ang isa ho sa mga nilabas ho namin na memorandum last 2020 po ay ang requirement ng lahat ng government offices, pati mga local government units, na mag-create ho sila ng kani-kanilang mga committees on anti-red tape. So it's also a requirement po na sila po ang mga, the committees on anti-red tape will be the small ARTA units within each government agency. It need not to be a separate plantilla positions po, as long as it is represented by at least a third ranking official po sa mga government offices. Maraming LGUs na rin po ang meron silang committees on anti-red tape. In fact, kapag ang complaint po ay pumunta po sa amin regarding applications na hindi po gumagalaw, ang committees on anti-red tape po ang una ho naming binibigyan ng 20 days to act on the matter and report to us ang kanilang accomplishment. There are several cases that have been filed also against both local and national government offices right now. Halos 600 na po in the past 2 years ang cases na na-file po for violation of the Anti-Red Tape Act. On the continuity aspect that you did mention, and I think that's very, very important because we are in a transition point ngayon po sa ating gobyerno. And we in government would always say na, ito hong programa namin, ginawa na ho namin, inilagay na ho namin sa policy namin, ginawa na ho namin manual, ginawa na po namin ng kung ano-ano pa. No? Pero at the end of the day po talaga yan, yung change ng leadership po talaga ang nagdi-determine kung ano po ang mga mangyayari doon sa susunod na administration. But I think one very good model for us to ensure na magtutuloy po ang mga reforma na gusto po natin gawin, yung ginagawa po natin ngayon. This discussion is very, very important. Nakakapagsalita po ang bawat isa from the private sector and the government sector, because at the end of the day, the leadership and the government would always respond, and I hope not just react, it would really respond on public discourse, yung mga hinaing po ng taong bayan, yung concerns po ng mga taong bayan. For example, nabanggit ko kanina ng akin mong kaibigan na si Yusek Chris, bagamat wala pa sa batas ang FOI as a law, nandun na ho yan as an executive order. Nabanggit rin ho ni Sir Sunny kanina na napaganda rin ang point niya na kinakailangan seryoso talaga sa pag-i-initiate. Pero yung bagamat wala pa sa batas, pero itong concern po na ito, nagtutuloy-tuloy po ito. So it's really the private and the public, the private sector who will continue to push and make demands sa darating hong mga liderato. And one way for us who are here right now to ensure na magtutuloy po ito is bigyan ho talaga ng boses right now at i-transfer po yung advocacy, maging advocacy level po yung mga ginagawa, government transparency, government efficiency, at maintindihan po rin ng mga private sectors kung nasa saan na tayo at ano yung ginagawa natin at ano ho yung mga pwede pa hong mangyari in the future, because once the transition happens, it would really now be the private sectors also who would make accountable again yung mga darating pong mga offices at mga opisyales. Sa ARTA po, ang aming pong automation at mga streamlining na ginagawa kong proseso, mahalaga po yung paggagawa po ng mga regulations sa darating kong mga panahon. Halimbawa ho, yung sinasabi kanina ng mga concerns po when it comes to the FOI law, na mangyayari, ano ho ba ang sakop na to? Ano po ba ang kailan ho ba papasok ang sinasabi na hindi nila mailalabas, gaano katagal? Lahat ho yan ay kinakailangan masuri at magawa with a genuine consultation and inputs at talagang pakikinig sa taong bayan. Yan ho ang kasama po sa proseso na ibinibigay po ng Regulatory Impact Assessment that ARTA was able to create. Ito nga ho yung mga manuals, it's with me, and the whole of government re-engineering manual. So it would really be inclusive and open. And isa pa ho, Ma'am Kat, gusto ko rin ho palang sabihin, ang isa pa sa mga practices na kinakailangan ho natin pagtibayan sa atin hong bureaucracia is to ensure na ang lahat ng mga policies ay meron pong sunset clauses. Ibig sabihin ho, hindi lamang automatically namamatay ang isang regulasyon, pero automatic na kinakailangan mong reviewin kung kinakailangan pang ituloy, kailangan isara, o kailangan rebasahin. So ito ho yung mga best practices that should really already be incorporated moving forward as a policy, and so that the people could already push and be more exacting po sa gobyerno.
Thank you, Secretary Jeremiah. And thank you also for giving me the opportunity to open the next round of from our non-government representatives. But I understand si Yusek Chris has to leave us, and si Asek Odi din, no? Baka picture na lang muna. And then I will ask our non-government reps to expand on that, no? How do we continue on with our claim making activities, continue to safeguard the civic space available to us, or even expand it, no? Entering into a new administration. Sige, so paano to, Secretariat? Do we all turn on our videos, even our participants? Yeah. Okay, sige, give us your best smile.
Kindly count, Miss Cathy.
Okay, count. 3, 2, 1, smile.
Please hold your smiles po for 5 seconds. We have 5 panels. Thank you.
5 seconds. Okay.
Are we good, Robin?
We're good. Yeah, so our smiles will carry us into the next 6 years of challenges, no? Which brings me, thank you again. I will say thank you now to our government panelists, Yusek Chris Ablan. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Asek Odi, it's nice meeting you for the first time. And Secretary Jeremiah, daghang kaayong salamat, no, sa inyong presensya. Sige, atong mga, you may stay on if you can, both of you, but so goodbye, Yusek Chris, since you have to leave. Yeah, so sa atong mga just maybe as part of our your the looking ahead, no? So yun, how do we continue to safeguard the space available to us, expand it even, institutionalize the reforms, no, that have been introduced also through the efforts. Let us not forget, also through the efforts of civil society in partnership with our government partners, no. So maybe because Ma'am Flora was raising her hands earlier, I'll give that first the virtual floor to you, Ma'am Flora.
Ang pagtingin ko lamang, Kath at mga kasama ko, ang ganda ng mga nabahagi sa atin ng ating mga government representatives, no? Sa FOI, no, sa ARTA, at sa DILG. Ang nakikita ko lang napakahalaga talaga. Sana yung line agencies ay aware sila dun sa role nila to really download, roll out yung mga magagandang impormasyong ito, lalo na sa freedom of expression sa kanilang local structures. Kasi hindi dapat maiiwan lang sa national level structure ng bureaucracy, ng line agency. It needs to be rolled out, no? Replicated hanggang sa mga local offices nila sa ground level. Para ang CSO, kasi ang CSO patuloy siyang nag-enhance ng kanyang awareness saka ng strategies niya on how to engage. Pero kung absent yung usapin ng openness at hindi ito tumatalab hanggang sa ground level at dahil hindi nila alam yung usapin o yung content mismo ng freedom of expression, yang sa usapin ng binabanggit kanina no ng DILG at ARTA, mawawalang saysay yung ating pag-ugnayan lalo na sa local level. At yan ay nararanasan po namin, no? Dahil hindi alam, lalo na sa education department, no? Hindi alam ng mga nasa lower echelon, no? Yung ganitong mga usapin. Kaya siguro kahit din sa national level no ng education system, kailangan din talaga open sila, i-broaden nila ang openness nila at partnership. Kasi tayong civil society talagang totoo tayong nakikipag-partner dahil ang ating agenda ay yung pagtulong, yung pagbabago, yung transformation ng ating education system para sa kabutihan ng buong mamamayan, lalo na yung mga maliliit nating sektor no ng mahihirap na hindi nakakapag-aral ang kanilang mga anak at kahit yung mga matatanda. Kaya yun yung aking gustong iwanan po sana, paano natin pagtutulong-tulungan yung ganitong pag-eliminate ng kultura ng pagiging closed din, kung open man, pahapyaw, hindi talaga totoong bukas, no? Dahil pinag-iisipan namin, ito ba'y dahil walang tiwala sa CSO? Kaya hindi ganoon ang kanilang political will to commit and to engage and to partner with transparency and accountability sa mga CSOs? Yan po yung aming hinaharap na problema. At hindi naman kami nawawalan ng pag-asa kasi gusto namin tuloy-tuloy yung aming pakikipag-ugnayan, engagement sa kasangga naming departamento para talaga maging whole of government or whole of the department, no? Yung ating transformative measures to really put forward yung mga changes na kailangan natin sa ating labas man o sa loob mismo ng OGP. Maraming salamat po.
Daghang salamat, Ma'am Flora. Next will be Sir Sunny, no? Tapos last si Kat kasi second generation daw eh. Sir Sunny, hagit na to.
Well, alam mo sa akin super short lang eh. Talagang kung gusto maraming paraan, kung ayaw maraming dahilan. Ako may reservation kami sa masyadong nagpupukpok dun sa mga laws, more and more laws as if fine-tuning. Yun nga, case in point lang yung FOI, nandyan na siya, it's in place. Kung mag-decide yung mga powers behind the agencies na sige, i-share the information, masya-share yon. So ako I think, ang danger kasi kung if we think it's about a new regulation, a new law, institutionalization, huwag natin kalimutan 4 decades na tayo since the fall of the Marcos dictatorship, 4 decades almost na building up all our CSO processes. Nakita ko sa chat box, may tokenism. Nandun na lahat eh. So sa akin, kung may formal decision at may orientasyon yung government agencies natin across the board, from local government to line agencies, to do something, to be more participatory, to be more open, yung talagang innovating na attitude sa CSOs, there's more than enough. Kaya ako, I am hesitant to think na it's a matter of better laws, sharpening regulations, improving. Hindi na po. Ang dami na natin since 1986, since 87 Constitution, sorry. So, kung gusto, maraming paraan. Kung ayaw, maraming dahilan. Isa po lang talaga natin kung ano yung mga dahilan kung ba't ayaw nila. Yun po.
Salamat, Sir Sunny. Gugustuhin ni Kat, Miss Kat.
Pressure ako doon, Miss Cathy. Ako yung last. Okay. So yung yung parang feeling ko challenge right now talaga is how to keep the local CSO strong and functional during this transition. Kasi aminin man natin, yung labanan talaga nasa local level eh. Yung service delivery at the local level. So yung challenge doon is how will we empower them to really participate. So yun yung namin ngayon na parang Meron din kaming maraming partnership, not only with the government, but with also other NGOs na etong mga local CSOs natin to come together to build parang a coalition, a multi-stakeholder network, yung People's Council, kung pwede yon nilang magawa, and then to come up with a common development agenda in consultation of all stakeholders, state and non-state. Because di ba naman po, yung ano naman po natin talaga is ma-uplift natin yung life ng ating mga constituents and parang ma-reach natin yung genuine local development talaga, especially now na implementation this year ng Mandanas ruling. So kailangan we need to participate for CSOs talaga. Nag-agree ako kay Sir Sunny na kung gusto maraming paraan, kung ayaw marami ding dahilan. So yun po yung masasabi ko lang. Thank you.
Daghang salamat. Just to sum up, no, again, in governance, there are two actors, really. Several actors, tatlo nga sabi nila. Pero for government to be open, responsive, and truly inclusive, no, I think those of us who have really engaged with our local governments and even national agencies do understand that just because may enabling legislation or policy, hindi siya automatic nagtra-translate nga into implementation, no? Kailangan pa rin na capacity, we've always talked of capacity building for CSOs, but there is only now sa Mandanas have we heard of capacity building also for government, no? For local governments, to make them more to cope up with the challenges really of Mandanas. So I think that also points us towards the way, no, na yes, we have the laws already, we have yung legislative framework, policy framework, but we also need to educate, capacitate our government, the bureaucracy really, in terms of truly making government open, responsive, and inclusive. And then there's the equation of our civil society, no, yung sabi ni Sir Sunny, and we are also doing it, is really if government doesn't work on empowerment, or the platforms available for us, mechanisms available for empowerment is not there, we can always do yung self-empowerment, capacitate ourselves, learn the art of negotiation, understand that right now it's not about revolutionary rupture, but probably about working in increments, no, contributing to the higher goal. And then lastly, maybe as my takeaway also, the challenge ahead really for us, both people who are very sincere people in government, this is my appreciation of the OGP platform, is really you have angels and champions and advocates in government. So it is for us really to strengthen that partnership, no, moving forward, to ensure that the reforms, if not yet institutionalized, to institutionalize it, to equip government bureaucracy as to how to implement fully, efficiently these reforms, no, and for civil society to continuously be vigilant in safeguarding, expanding, if possible, the civic space available to us, no. So again, daghang salamat kaayo. Wala na sila diri, but thank you so much, Yusek Chris Ablan, Secretary Jeremiah Belgica, Yusek Odilon Pasaraba, Ms. Kat Itong, Sir Sunny Africa, and Professor Flora Arellano. Thank you so much for sharing your time, for sharing your thoughts in pointing the way forward, no, for us into these exciting years ahead. And well, the onus really is on us, civil society, as well as advocates in government, of open government, to continue to push forward and bring what we've learned, the gains of the past years, into the next 6 years, no? So I hope our participants have been inspired by the discussion, have seen the openings for continued engagement, and have seen have been challenged, no, to move forward into the next 6 years in pushing for open government, not just in the national level, but most especially where our communities can feel it in our local governments. So, Usab, we will close this session. Sige, nung Lunes, last Monday, nilaunch po ng ating secretariat yung isang engagement activity kung saan may chance na manalo ang mga the general public, no, ng mga limited edition Open Gov Week 2022 shirts. So we will show you the design of the shirts. Hopefully this will excite you to be part of yung OGP buzz natin, no. So simple lang po yung mechanics ng engagement activity na to. Please like the Philippine Open Government Partnership Facebook page. And sa pamamagitan ng pag-post nyo sa inyong timeline, sagutin lamang ang question, ang katanungan na, what reform, program, project would you like to see in the 6th National Action Plan 2022-2026 and why? Now, so we are concluding the 5th National Action Plan, and we will be entering into a 4-year NAP. No? So we would really want to solicit your recommendations as to what can be innovative, groundbreaking reforms that will matter to every Maria and Juan in our communities, no? That we can include in the National Action Plan. So when, by posting such your answers to the question, please tag Philippine Open Government Partnership Facebook page at gamitin ang hashtags na hashtag PH-OGP Week 2022 and hashtag OpenGovPH. So siguraduhin lamang po natin na nakapublic ang post natin upang madali nito makita ng ating organizers and secretariat. No? So please go to the Facebook page and give your inputs on the 6th National Action Plan that we will be submitting to the open government community, global community. So yung deadline po nito is this Friday, May 20, 9 a.m. according to our kasama in the secretariat, no? So we will be choosing 6 winners of the shirts. So please bisitahin nyo na si Facebook page OpenGovPH para sa karagdagang impormasyon tungkol dito. So bago tayo tuluyang magtapos, let me share with you I think we've shared it already, no, our key takeaways. Our participants also in Zoom have given their takeaways by sharing their thoughts on how to make to cascade, no, participation, inclusive governance to the local level. So thank you for your thoughts on that. Again, please continue to also input your thoughts, no, in our Facebook comment section so that our secretary can also take note of this. So we would also want to request everyone to help us improve the conduct of the activities such as this, no, by answering the Facebook survey, the link to which is shown on your screen. This will also be the basis for the certificates which we will be sending you. The link is also posted in our chat box and on our Facebook live stream comment section. Lastly, we'd like to invite you na if you could join us, no, sumali sa closing session ng ating Open Gov Week celebration this Friday, May 20 at 10 a.m. same time. And the same Zoom link, no? We will be recognizing key PH-OGP advocates who have, we will use this, exemplified open government values and principles in their reforms and advocacies in the Philippine Open Government Exemplar Recognition Ceremony. Registration details for this session are now being flashed on screen and can be accessed in our chat box and in the comment section of our Facebook live stream pages. Ug usab, daghan kaayong salamat sa inyo for being one with us in the second session ng Open Gov Week 2022. We hope to see you again in our next activities. I am Catherine Ruiz, and together, let us all continuously champion openness and accountability in governance through PH-OGP and other platforms available in our local governments and communities. Daghang salamat ug mag-amping kita kanunay.
Salamat sa lahat. Ingat. Thank you, thank you.